in general, just be prepared, right? Obviously, nobody would have expected a pandemic, but be prepared for the worst case that you can imagine, I guess, right? So going back to like the payroll things, and just having the proper documentation and taking all the necessary steps, even though in the beginning stages of your company, that is tedious work and it's not fun, but in the long term, it's going to pay off, right? Like even in our own business, we're doing fine, but like we've run into some problems too, right? And it's taught us that like, had we done this another way, we would have been in maybe a slightly better position. But that's like the reality for any business, right? Yeah, so preparedness is key, and I guess patience too. And don't be selfish either.
For those that were watching, you just saw my lips move. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but we're good now. So as you can see, this is our first fully virtual show that we've had all year. Obviously, with the whole COVID spike, we don't want to take any risks, so we're not at the studio currently. And we're doing this all live from our homes. Today, we have a great episode. I'm your host, Walter Salomaki. I'm joined by the managing partners of Free Logic. We got Nick Hill and Luis. We missed out on Luis's cat. But today we're going to be talking about the reflection of 2020 and just discussing a lot of lessons learned from us building a company and a media platform all during the time of COVID and all this craziness that's been going on. But to get started with the episode, just a bit disclaimer, we are enjoying holiday beverages. So if you are under the age of 21, do not participate in these activities. These are only for 21 and older. But
if you are literally anywhere else in the world, though, it's 18 and older, so you get a few years.
What are you guys drinking?
I'm drinking, well, out of my branded brew mug. And let's not forget our branded brew sweater here. Let's start plugging the merch, boys. Let's start this virtual one off right. I spent way too long, more time than I'd like to admit, making homemade eggnog last night, and it is very delicious. Would I do it again? Probably not. I'd probably just go buy eggnog. But I will say it's probably some of the best eggnog, if not the best I've had.
Nice.
Fair enough. I have my specialty holiday Christmas special drink, which is a mixture of a White Russian and eggnog. If anybody wants the recipe, I'll let you know. It honestly tastes absolutely delicious, but of course I'm enjoying this massive mug. But yeah, Nikhil, what are you enjoying today?
So I actually usually make this when I'm sick, but it's a hot toddy. So basically, got some whiskey, boiling water, or just really hot water, lemon tea, honey, and cinnamon stick.
Look at you. Make sure you eat that cinnamon stick at the end when it gets nice and soft.
But yeah, today, obviously with some holiday spirit drinks, it's a great time to reflect on 2020. Obviously it's been a crazy year. But to get started, just wanted to get both your guys' takes, just quick takes before we actually go through the different episodes. Just like one major thing that kind of threw you off guard, that's like a major lesson learned from this year. Obviously, like COVID changed so many things, but if there's like one thing you'd boil the year down to, because we'll be talking about that throughout this entire show.
There's one thing that took me as a surprise.
Yeah, aside from COVID, obviously.
Okay, all right. That excludes what I was gonna say then. as I cough. God. Let's see here. One thing that took me by surprise. I mean, how into the weeds can we get here? How many drinks do I have to be in before I start?
That's why I asked this first, because then as we go further down the line and we actually talk about our shows and how we progress, we'll analyze this a little bit deeper. But just want to get a quick little take on lesson learned.
I will say this. I will say that the big lesson learned here was how resilient small businesses can be against all odds from maybe some not so good forces.
Fair enough.
How about you, Nico?
I guess to build off of that thought, I'm surprised we're at 60K in cases in California at this point. Was not expected.
Aside from COVID's out of the
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm a little under the influence.
Self-reflection.
Self-reflections.
Oh,
Okay.
this is self-reflection. Oh,
Okay.
okay.
That's why I got a little confused. Come on, Luis. Don't us off guard here.
I started this thing off right. We're doing the eggnog stuff.
Okay. I've talked about it multiple times in our podcast. So I'm not going to get too into the weeds, but I expected to be traveling a lot for work this year in my previous job, and I expected to not be involved with this very much at all, or not at all, but not as nearly as much as I am.
Yeah.
And then starting in March, everything changed, and I definitely didn't expect to leave my comfortable job in the middle of a pandemic, and then during like a recession, and then now working on a startup. I had absolutely no idea this was going to happen. So
Yeah,
fair enough.
Just to go off of that for a quick one, I take back my answer until we get drunk. I think I'm with you. This year has put me in a position that I did not think at the beginning of the year I was going to be in. I mean, I think at the beginning of the year I was barely like having conversations with Unikill to meet up with Val, and then that turned into, you know, where we are now. I think at the beginning of the year I was still working in LA.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was.
You were, because like literally that's where we went to just get flights of beer and talk about SEO for 3 hours straight.
Yeah, 2020.
That was 2020.
This year is
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, man, I was still working in LA, and I was like dead set. I was like, yep, this is where I'm gonna be, and then it didn't work out that way, and then other stuff happened. But this situation that I'm in right now, I would not have expected it. I'm glad it's going the way it's going. I mean, there's literally zero regrets, but it's interesting for sure. Reflecting back on where I was January and my mindset January of 2020 versus where are we at now, the 19th or something like that, 18th.
Yep.
Yeah, weird.
No, definitely. I mean, yeah, it's crazy to look at back 2020. I was doing my MBA. I was like, okay, now I got to make my choices. Going all in the startup. I guess my major lesson learned is that you have to treat everything like a marathon instead of a sprint, because some things you have to do like super fast and like grind it out, but you can't just like go ham for like 6 months straight. I learned that the hard way. But we'll talk about that more as I get into more eggnog. But I mean, yeah, I think we have a lot of lessons learned that we can talk about today, especially kind of going through our episodes. And it's crazy to see how not only like the brew has evolved, we now have a platform for it, as well as Free Logic overall. Our team has grown. The fact that we've been able to hire 4 people during a pandemic has been absolutely insane. But talking about the brew, we started this year and we had a pretty clear vision for it, because our first full-on video in the studio was in 2019 with Neil Goyle. And that was towards the end, right before 2020. Neil was a great guest to have on the show, as he was a thought leader on LinkedIn. And from there, we really started like actually changing the show to really focusing on topics, because the first episode we had in 2020 was with Kristen. We talked about sustainability. We talked about and like implementation of blockchain. And then from there, we actually had a lot of high-tech conversations. So if I look back, like it's pretty crazy, because we had Kristen on the show. Then we had ARCs early on. We had I talked about Edge. That loves to be thrown in the chat with Edge. But when we look back at kind of the older episodes and I look at it, it's pretty crazy to look at how we were talking about business before COVID. So I don't know if you guys have had the chance to actually look at those previous episodes, but the way we were talking about everything in early 2020 was so optimistic about absolutely everything and everything working out. And like, these are the things that are going to change everything, blah, 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 blah. COVID hit, and almost everything we talked about on the technology standpoint is still true to today, but it's completely pivoted to like virtual and how like companies are going about it. So just guys' quick takes on like doing the show before COVID, and then like our conversations then and then now. Because think about it, like we always talked about like business growth and like technology growth and like this is how the world's going to change. Then COVID hit. Now we're talking about how COVID is changing technology. We kind of reversed the script. Instead of talking about how technology is going to change the world, we're talking about how COVID is changing how technology is being used. So do you guys have any takes on that, as for a little reflection on how even in our own kind of like understanding of the world, it completely got skewed as we hit into March?
Yeah, I feel like before COVID, we kind of just talked about different topics and stuff. And like you said, they were optimistic and it was just kind of about the topic. But I feel like after COVID, in many of the episodes, COVID was a centerpiece, or like a key
TikTok.
component of like the key component of like the discussion, right? And TikTok, yeah, it rose like crazy, partially because of COVID, right? So I think we talked a lot about change and yeah, I think a lot of our conversations were focused more on like change and what could happen and what we foresee happening that we weren't expecting before, whereas before it was just more focused on learning more about the topic itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think like us as a business, like the stuff we would talk about, funny enough, like you kind of mentioned it when we were talking about the technology stuff, we weren't really too wrong. Like as far as like what we saw as like growth kind of industries and what we thought would really take off. The only difference there being, I think, the implementation of the actual way that they had to get done. The one surprise that I didn't think would ever take off the way it did was definitely Zoom. Yeah, like
I'm just shocked that Skype just blew it, bro.
It's typical, dude. The thing is though, are you like we talked about this when you bring up TikTok again. We talked about this when Microsoft was was in the mix to acquire TikTok. Like our big thing, a big part of the conversation was bringing up the fact that Microsoft always fumbles the ball with like majority of their stuff. Like the only reason that they're relevant is like, I don't know, the fact that they have Windows. Like that's kind of it, you know. Like Teams is better for sure. Teams is good now, and the integration stuff like that is fine. But when they have like other stuff, like when they got Skype, like Skype has been around for like 12 years, maybe probably longer than that. The fact that everyone is using Zoom and not Skype is honestly kind of wild to me. So yeah, man. I mean, this year I think has been a lot of growth in industries, and then has been a lot of decline in other industries.
Yeah.
Which is not to say that industries that declined are bad. It's just to say they were industries that could not pivot to virtual. You know, this old saying goes that the movie industry is indestructible because when people are sad, they want to escape and they want to watch a movie, and when people are happy, they want to celebrate and go watch a movie. That's why during the Great Depression, during the Great Recession, ticket sales typically swing up because people are trying to escape. But it turns out a virus was the thing that the movie industry and the entertainment industry as a whole needed to kind of put them on their ass. A lot, yeah, it's a lot. I think you honestly, no one could have predicted this, and no one did predict this.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. I mean we'll talk about a little bit more as we go through some of the episodes that we've had in the past on like what really has changed, because like from early on during COVID, like there was still some optimism that it would be over faster. And then obviously those that were scientists were saying like, no, this is gonna be around for a long time. It's not gonna go away. And a lot of decisions were made based off of like optimistic assumptions. But before we got to go into those and reflect on what does that mean for us, even as a company, and what lessons learned we had there. One thing I think is interesting is like the episodes we had before COVID. If you check out like the one with Neil, check out the one we had with Jonathan Javier, check out the one we had with Arcs. Everything we talked about, yeah, it still has a lot of resemblance to today, because like one we talked about Neil was personal branding. Now personal brand is bigger than anything before, because if you don't stand out personally, like when you apply to jobs and stuff like that, it's hard to stand out because everybody's virtual. We're doing calls virtually, we're doing Zoom calls. Like you have to have a personal brand there. Same thing with Jonathan is we talked about how you can leverage LinkedIn. Same thing to today, whether it be even B2B sales in your company or trying to get a job opportunity. LinkedIn's still the prior, like you still use LinkedIn for that. Arcs was talking about supply chain automation. And I honestly think the supply chain automation is going to even happen faster now, because they want to limit the risk. And they still have it in, like, we're buying everything online now. There's not a big enough workforce to handle the amount of people buying 1-day shipping on Amazon, 2-day shipping on Amazon. They need AI to support in those activities. not necessarily to displace, but to be a part of it. And the same thing with like supply chain, blockchain, all these technologies, cryptocurrencies blowing up. So it's so crazy to see, like, if you look at it, what we talked about does have a lot of impact to today. But then once we go into the episodes, we started out with COVID. Some of those episodes we had with members of the Office of Technology Partnership and entrepreneurs in residence within UCR and some professors as well. And it's interesting to think because we talked about nonprofits, small businesses, and this was in the early stages of COVID and kind of like what's going on, like apply to all these grants and now there's like new opportunities that are going to surface because there's new problems. But now we really see the impact on small business. Like we really see it. And it's unfortunately going to get worse because hasn't been any assistance. Restaurants are closing down. Service industries can't do their business. And it's this constant battle between like health, right? And then business survival. It's a very hard conversation, and I don't think there's an easy solution to it. But reflecting back, I think the one thing that's interesting to me is, and I talked about this with Gerson, is why some small businesses survived and why others didn't. Obviously, there's some cases where like it's not true to everything. Some people did the best they could and they still had to close down shop. But as for like barbershop specifically, the one interesting thing that we talked about with Gerson is we did the business correctly. We had accounting books. We had online receipts. We had data from emails. We were able to communicate with the audience. We had online platform, online presence. We did these things pre-COVID, and that allowed JBiz to survive during COVID, right? So do you guys have any takes on, as for like small businesses, nonprofits, startups, what is the lesson learned from this year? I mean, I definitely have a lot to say about it, but what are your guys' takes on like, what should 2020 really show for a business owner, the understanding of environmental factors?
A lot. I mean, that's kind of like the very one word or two word kind of response. But to the point, I think let's look at industry by industry, right? To the point of if you're in an industry like a barbershop that primarily works on cash, right? And very much tries to keep it that way. Sometimes for some
most
less than
most of the time it's for tax purposes, but yes,
exactly. Most of the time it's for a little bit of tax evasion. No one can blame you, except the IRS, I suppose. But you look at other industries that rely heavily on stuff like that, that rely on these kind of cash things, tattoo parlors, barbershops, the more kind of not necessarily something you think about a bunch. When they take card, you're like, cool, but more often than not, you're stopping at an ATM. Those industries, I think the one thing that they can learn here is just do it the right way. And I know that's very much easier said than done, especially coming from someone who isn't within the industry. Well, not directly at least. It's a lot easier for me to be like, well, just pay your taxes and get all the paperwork done and make sure that everything is it has a trail to it, so that if something like this happens again, you can apply for a PPP loan, you can apply for assistance, you can do all this stuff. I truly do believe that a lot of these businesses that went down quickly, not the ones that went down like 4 months, 5 months down the line, but the ones that went down quickly were the ones that realized immediately. They were like, well, I didn't do any of this paperwork, I'm not going to get any money, and during the shutdown, no one's going to be coming here, and my business can't actually continue. So then they immediately just liquidated and got rid of whatever they could. I think that's an important thing, is make sure you're doing it right. I know it takes a long time, it takes longer to do paperwork and hire an accountant or hire somebody who can do this stuff for you. But it's the difference between your business surviving a pandemic or not surviving a pandemic at the end of the day.
There's a lot of small businesses that unfortunately went under, and that's because they weren't eligible for PPP. They weren't eligible for a lot of these support because they had no cash flow projections. They didn't have financial statements. If you want to get assistance from a bank, from the government, from anything, you have to have documentation for it. So I think this is a great year to show that like entrepreneurship is hard. It's extremely hard, and you have to do it right. And you should take the time to do it right, whether it be making your legal entity correctly, having your taxes correctly, covering all, like actually doing payroll correctly, all these factors, right? It matters. It matters in these kinds of situations. And I think we were at a point when it wasn't early 2020 where everything in the economy just felt so great. It was kind of like, what can go wrong? I
Oh
was
yeah.
more worried about the stock market than anything else. I wasn't thinking about a global pandemic. And it hit. I mean, in strategy, they teach you this. You have to project out, like it's almost impossible to project out a global pandemic, but you have to look at environmental factors as well, because they can slash your business automatically. And those are external forces that are threats, right? So you have to consider them. And I think the other thing that this showed is like for a lot of companies, they didn't take their cash balance seriously. So like a good, healthy business has 3 months of payroll in their bank account. And most businesses before they entered COVID didn't have that. So those first 3 months were brutal. Obviously, larger corporations did, and they were able to slash their expenses by removing some employees, but you're supposed to have 3 months of payroll ready. And I think this one situation here that I really taught is that also has a lot of impact, because you can't project these things out, and your business might be close to 3 months. So how are you going to survive? How are you going to get to that next level? These are a lot of things to reflect on. And obviously, like us as three founders of a company, we're thinking about this all the time. Like now we're really focusing on that. And that's why we have avoided taking pay. We're avoiding taking expenses in the company, so we can get to that point. So we want to be a healthy company, and we can survive no matter what the situation is. So I personally, for me, that's a huge lesson learned, is that you can't be over optimistic about growth in your company. You have to like be ready if something, like if shit hits the fan, recover from it as quickly as possible. Nikhil, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say pretty much similar to you guys. Like in general, just be prepared, right? Obviously, nobody would have expected a pandemic, but be prepared for the worst case that you can imagine, I guess, right? So going back to like the payroll things, and just having the proper documentation and taking all the necessary steps, even though in the beginning stages of your company, that is tedious work and it's not fun, but in the long term, it's going to pay off, right? Like even in our own business, we're doing fine, but like we've run into some problems too, right? And it's taught us that like, had we done this another way, we would have been in maybe a slightly better position. But that's like the reality for any business, right? Yeah, so preparedness is key, and I guess patience too. And don't be selfish either.
Yeah,
absolutely. Take care of others, take care of those that you do stuff with, especially when you build a business. And I think that's one huge positive I would say for us, and how we be able to grow our company, is everybody in our company is family in one essence or another. And the way that we are able to hire is not necessarily always based off of skill set, but based off of like the willingness to learn and grow. And I think that's a huge thing that made a difference for us personally. Because I think that if we had people that just had a skill set and transactional, during hardships, they would jump ship. And that in a company is really hard, because you have turnover rates, and that causes problems. But if you have everybody who buys in, understand what the vision is, understand what are you aiming to do, and that's a long journey, it's not easy to do that. Those are the people you want to build a company with, because most people, when they see a paycheck, they're driven by that, right? And they'll make their decisions by that. But if you have people that really buy into like, what is the long-term vision? What are you trying to get it done? It's crazy to see what's behind that. And I can attest to that from Free Logic. Our team has been amazing because of that. Everybody really supports each other. Everybody wants to grow. Same thing for my startup team for Edgetown Research. It's been crazy to see our team stick together, and within a global pandemic, our team's been able to design a new product. So these are things that I would say that don't happen, right, unless you find the right people. So when you build a company, the early stages, the first couple hires are key hires. You got to make sure you make this decision correctly. Don't rush those decisions, and really move that forward. But kind of moving on for kind of like what we also talked about back in but we were talking about, is TikTok dead? And I think this is hilarious. The reason I'm bringing this stuff up, I think this is so funny, it's just that we had a whole episode on, is TikTok dead? Let me actually see the timestamp on this. This is on August 13th, right? So,
well, in our defense, TikTok was, this is back when old Donny Boy was mad that those dancers were trying to, take him out. So he, he tried to sell off everything to the United States, and then Microsoft was in the bit. Look, it all comes back to Microsoft just not knowing how to own a company. That's why, in our defense, that is why we thought TikTok was dead. That's why I thought TikTok was dead. But boy, howdy, was I wrong. It's, I was wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I still think my favorite quote was about 3 weeks ago. I was watching CNBC, and the commentator was just like, "With TikTok, I don't even know anymore. I don't care." He literally said that on air. I was just like, that's how I feel. Because like honestly, at this point, it's all over the place. It was a big deal in the summertime. It felt like it was gonna die off, and at this point, nothing's gonna happen to it. It was just a big spiel for a little bit. Now at this point, it's a whatever. The Biden administration is not gonna care about it.
No.
It is what it is, and now I'm once again a little bit more bullish on TikTok. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because one lesson learned here we talked about prior to like talking about TikTok was like you have to diversify what social platforms you're on, how you're building out content and your content strategies, whether individually, like if you're trying to build a personal brand or if you're trying to build a company. We stopped using TikTok, and looking back at it, I do think that was slightly a mistake. The reason why I say that is because we missed out on another spurt of when people were dying out, and that's when there's less content on the platform where you can actually take the advantage of it. And a great example of this is Jonathan, who was on our show, Jonathan Javier. He just made a TikTok and he got on Yahoo. He got on Yahoo News, and it was because his TikTok went viral, and he got over 60 million views or whatever on his TikTok, and that happens because of consistency in posting, right? So that's a good reflection from us, is that even though we try to diversify and we were very careful on like what platforms we're using and stuff like that, you can still make the mistake of eliminating a platform. And I think looking back at it, we should have downsized our content on it, but we should never have gotten off of it. And I think that looking back is one mistake that I wish we could redo. But going into 2021, we're going to be bullish on TikTok again. At least I want to.
Me too.
Yes, I think the three of us do. And it's really funny to see how like all of the TikTok clones that came out are just like not even in the conversation anymore, because they some of them are like safe havens for like the alt-right and people just like stopped even acknowledging them. And then just TikTok is still great. Like thankfully nothing has changed about it as far as the algorithm goes. It just gets better. I mean, to talk about another thing that we talked about.
Illegal data they're taking, then absolutely.
Yeah, but I mean, to touch on another thing we brought up in a different podcast was the way that they're doing partnerships and like integrations and stuff like that. Like it's at this point, I feel like I don't see a situation where TikTok can get hit harder than it got hit at the middle of this year in 2020.
Yep, I agree.
2021, excuse me.
2021, yeah. I do think I see a lot of upside to TikTok, and I'm very bullish on it again. I think there's going to be a lot of cool things with it, especially because another thing we talked about, and it's great that we talked about these things, we can pull off the Gary Vee and be like, look at, we talked about this on this day, was the antitrust hearings and what's going to happen with like Facebook and stuff like that. And the only company that I was thinking was going to get split up was Facebook. And right now, there is litigations that are actually have some ground to it to split up TikTok. I mean, split
multiple
up Facebook.
States.
Yeah, exactly. So it would be Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp get split into separate companies. And honestly, I prefer that. I would love that, because if you look at Instagram, it pisses me off because they changed the entire UI of it, and I can just tell that there's Facebook guys who are like, no, this is good. It's like, no, this sucks. This is terrible. This is like completely killed the platform for me.
Yeah.
And those decisions come from like a huge company, because you get a lot of pressure down versus like a lean company, like a small smart startup. They're going to ask their users about advice, right? A big company pushes it onto people. Like, don't get me wrong, like Apple does that, but they do it well. Like, I always give crap to Apple, but the thing is, like, Apple releases stuff and people still like it. It's not like Apple gets like a huge, because like the Apple crowd still likes it, and they don't care about feedback. They'll still make it the next year. But Facebook and like a social platform, you gotta listen to your users, because they're gonna jump off, and if you have a competitor like TikTok, you're gonna lose all your value.
I mean, we talked about it when we talked about the Instagram UI changes. At this point, it's just a grab. The only thing that Facebook has going for it right now is groups, and that's kind of it. Marketplace to some extent, but now that OfferUp acquired Let's Go, the marketplace there, that's just going to be even more massive, definitely competing with Facebook Marketplace. I think honestly they're going, okay, all of the only people left on Facebook are the boomers all the millennials, Gen X, and Gen Z are no longer on Facebook, or if they are, it's very limited. Okay, so where are the Gen X and the millennials going? Oh, they're going to Instagram. Okay, well now we have to take everything that was Facebook and how we kind of made money on Facebook and just shove that into Instagram so we can turn a profit on that. I brought this up. It literally is just them trying to make Instagram profitable, like how Facebook is, through ads, paid posts, and all this kind of stuff. I get why they're trying to do it, but I think the implementation that they took is really stupid. And honestly, I'd be so happy if they got broken up.
Yeah. I mean, it's
They
going to
could've
change
done it in
things
a
as
much better
marketers,
way.
though. Yeah, they could have done it a much better way, but it also changes how we market because running ad campaigns is going to be a lot harder if there's broken up.
That's true.
Oh, I guarantee you. Let's mute the mics real quick. All we have to do is just create like API that connects to all three, because I guarantee there's still going to be some connective tissue there. Just create something that connects to all three of them and just manages campaigns from one hub.
Yeah, no, they'll definitely do that. But Nikhil, on your end, you're the design guy here. What is your take on Instagram overall?
Yeah, I mean, I already expressed my frustration once or twice. I think, like I said just now, like they could have done it in a much better way. I think what annoyed me was that they took something that was familiar, such as like the placement of how the locations you go to posting something, and the location you go to see your notifications, and they completely changed where they are, something that's been the same for years and years and years. And it was a very convenient spot. And then all of a sudden they shoved in 2 new features in the place of those. And it's just confusing and annoying. So they like, yeah, like I see why they integrated this stuff, but it just wasn't the cleanest way done, you know. Like you can access reels from like 2 or 3 different spots, and I'm just like, I'm so confused. Like, do I go here or do I go here? Like, why do I have so many options to do the same thing? It's kind of like reading a menu too, right? Like, do you guys ever get overwhelmed when you go to like, I don't know, a Cheesecake Factory or whatever with like 1,000 items on the menu, and you're just like, I don't know what to order right now?
I just asked for what is the best thing on the menu and get that. Yeah.
You get it's so it's the illusion of choice. When you have too much of it, it's overwhelming and you can't choose.
Yeah, that's basically like a huge UX flaw. Like UX is not just in apps, it's in everything, right? So you're more likely going to overwhelm people if you have too many options to do like kind of the same thing, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you can categorize it and make it cleaner, then might as well make it simpler. Simpler the better.
Yeah. I know you guys aren't Twitter lads like I am.
I also need to get back on Twitter. Like Twitter. I talked to you about it last year, and I was just like, I got to jump on it. I still haven't jumped on it, so I'll get back on it.
Follow me for the hottest socialist takes, dude. So the thing that I hate, well, I like about Twitter and I hate about Instagram. One last little tidbit here is that certain social media platforms can get bullied into reversing a decision they made because so many people dislike it. Facebook, I don't think ever once in their history has gone back on a decision because they think that the engineers over there and the design team and everything like that, I think feels like they know what people want, which is not the case with the social platform. So it's really telling with something like this, like Instagram's UI. On Twitter, if you wanted to retweet something, the change was here. The change used to be you would like click on the retweet button, a little tiny retweet button, and then down here at the bottom, which they changed it back. You see that popped up? Where's my camera? It says retweet, quote tweet. They changed that recently, and they made it so like where you retweet, you have to go all the way up here to do that stuff. Like it's like a UI change. People hated it, absolutely hated it. So they reverted back to the old retweet way. This UI, where if I wanted to post something on a social network that's dedicated to posting, where it's no longer right here, easily accessible to my thumbs, and I have to do the old ham gymnastics to like scroll my hand up here and touch that little plus button. It's the dumbest thing in the world. I don't need a Reels button. I don't need a little shopping cart button. Give me a posting button so I can post on your social media and not just consume on your social media.
Yeah, no, and I think this also ties into our episode that we had with Andres, and we talked a lot about just like user experience overall and like why it's so important and why people should care about it, and how to go about it, especially with COVID and all these things, because it's just weird to me how companies think that behavior is going to change. Like they bring something and they expect you to like just behave that way. And I think that is just like it's just this like false reality that some business owners have, expecting that just because I provide something that the user's going to do it how I expect them to use it. And
Yeah.
it's the job of the creator, like the entrepreneur, whoever creating that product or service, to ask feedback. You work with the users to create the product, because at the end of the day, they're your customer. So why not work with them to make something that they want? That's like lean startup methodology. That's how you should be building companies. And I don't get that. Like, it's just weird to me how like these massive companies are just like, nah, dude, I'm too big. I don't care. Users don't matter. I'm just gonna do what I want to do. I just don't get it.
I was going to say earlier that like a lot of big companies, although this is changing a little bit, but a lot of big companies haven't valued user experience, and that's not just design, that's research and stuff too, right? And gathering data and insights from customers before that design process even begins. So I think on one end, it is understandable why companies would think that because of a changed landscape or changed environment with like COVID and everything, that people are going to change their ways in some instances. But again, going back to the whole familiarity aspect, like most likely they're not if it's a very highly used like platform or device or thing. And the best way for these companies to understand what customers want is to literally just do research, right? And interview them and take that data and insight to figure out how to optimize what they have right now into something that's better for the customers, not for the company.
Got it. Yeah, no, I agree. I think the one thing you're going to see going into like 2021 and forward is companies not only hiring like agencies, but they need to do like mini internal teams. Like, I think that's the one reason I'm always going to say that Google is just going to dominate, because they split up into micro teams, fund micro startups. They take no risk as a company. If it fails, it fails. It's $1 million thing, whatever. They can just write it off as taxes. But their entire approach is that they use small teams that actually have to do the research, have to show certain traction. They have to get user feedback. They're really good at it. And that's why Google's a little scary at the same time, because they have so much, data collection. But they use that data collection to make their services as optimal as possible. Don't get me wrong, their customer service is god awful. Like, if you ever try to get on the phone with somebody from Google to fix something, it is atrocious.
I lost my email.
I don't even.
There's no. I could never get a hold of anybody from freaking Google. It's just gone. I mean, like,
so you lost your email like address or like the emails in your inbox?
No, my email address, and my favorite one too was it was a swagmasterlou@gmail.com, and I loved that email address. I would always giggle to myself whenever like I would be like somewhere in like a store that it was my like junk email account. So I didn't care about it, but I loved the name of it. So like I would always giggle to myself whenever I would be at like Kohl's and they'd be like, "What's your email?" And I'd be like, swagmasterlu@gmail.com, and I know they would see the freaking name there. They would be like, "This guy." Like.
So here's the thing. Our new free Logic emails, I think that might have to be yours.
Swagmasterlu@freelogic.com.
Yeah. Why not? Like, I think that's fantastic. Like, we're already going through
in the memory of my old email. That I'm cool with that. 100%.
Oh man, I just can't imagine messaging clients with that email. But aside from that, yeah, I mean.
No, I'm Googling.
Yeah, it's
a good email. It was a good email, dude. I hate it. I hate that I lost it.
I love it though. But I mean, like, going from user experience, there was one company, which we were fortune tellers of, and this is all on you, Luis. I don't even need to speak of this thing. But the reason why I want to bring this up to kind of reflect on our 2020 past is because this is why our episodes kind of tie in together. Like, we talk about these things, but we really want to kind of tell a story as we go by, not something that's so timely, but something that actually like showcases like business development, so you can understand how we're analyzing these companies. One of them, Luis, would you like to share what your rant for like all of 2020 has been?
Can I go get a refill on the eggnog before I go into my my Quibi chat, or should this be a little bit more of a sober chat on Quibi?
Quibi first, and then you can stock up. And while you do that, I'm gonna go make myself a new drink.
Well, hold on. Let's all be here for this. We'll run an ad after the Quibi talk. That should give us 60 seconds to go make a drink.
All right, fair enough.
Or 30 seconds, whatever kind of ad roll we're running. Okay. Yeah, I was absolutely right. Like I'm not even gonna like be humble about it. Quibi
what was Quibi? What was Quibi? Just say it one more time. What was Quibi?
What was Quibi? Quibi was a stupid idea. That's what Quibi was. I mean. So here's the thing. Like, oh my god, dude. I'm gonna center my chi right now. So Quibi, what it was supposed to be.
You say center your chi?
Yeah, I'm centering myself.
Okay.
So, Quibi was supposed to be a video platform that focused on quick bites, Quibi, that people could take during commutes or when they had some downtime waiting in line at a coffee shop, or just kind of queuing. That was their main thing. The episodes weren't very long. They wanted it to be this kind of place where you could go get a quick episode and not feel like you have to watch half of something. I get the premise. I get where they're coming from. The technology was cool, the way they did it, and I talked about this when we badmouthed Quibi. Was how you could the actual content would change depending on how you're holding your phone. If you're holding it landscape or vertical, the content would actually be different depending on if the show actually had those integrations, which I think is really cool. Like that to me was something that was pretty rad. The shows besides Reno 911 were pretty much hot garbage. Within the industry, I'm not in the industry, but I watched like entertainment news and stuff like that, and everybody in the industry was saying that with Quibi, they were greenlighting any show as long as they could have an A-list celebrity or a high-tiered celebrity within the show. That's why if you look at the shows on Quibi, most of them had some sort of celebrity, or they had some sort of nostalgia. You know, they like Punk'd was on there, and Chance the Rapper was on there. Did Chance the Rapper need to be on Punk'd? Probably not, but he was a celebrity that was high tier, and it's a show that's nostalgic, so why not? Let's combine the two. Their budgets were crazy, apparently. Like the reason they burned through so much money. What was their original investment? Like 1.2 billion or something like that?
Yeah, it was a casual couple billion, you know.
Yeah, pretty cash. It was like 1.2 billion or 2.1 billion, one of those two. And the reason they burned through that so quickly was pay for the technology and also to pay for the first slate of shows, which were so expensive because they had to bring on these celebrities.
And the ads, right?
And the ads, yeah, the Super Bowl ads and all the other things.
Those were like micro compared to like the amount of cost they had for the content.
Yeah, the marketing for the actual shows and all that stuff. So they did everything wrong. They did everything in the way they're not supposed to do it. They thought, you look at all the other platforms, the successful ones that are still around. Netflix is the biggest kind of king of the throne here when it comes down to how to actually implement a streaming service. I think you license really cheap but watchable movies for the first half of your life, and that's what they did when they were digital. We're looking just at digital. We're not looking at the DVD subscription stuff. Look at just digital here. You license stuff from networks. You're gonna lose money, but having those shows gets people on your platform. They pay monthly, and hopefully at some point you turn a profit. You're not gonna turn a profit for the first few years. That's just matter of fact because of all the licensing fees. And then eventually you get enough people on your platform so then you can invest in creating unique original shows. Keep in mind, all of the shows that Netflix had at the very beginning, they were not shows that had these like massive celebrities in them. That wasn't a priority. Our priority for them, exactly, the priority for them was watchability. I didn't need to have, I don't know how many I feel like every Quibi show had a celebrity, so I don't even care which one I talk about. But like, I'll just bring back Punk because that's the first one on my mind. Or like Chrissy Teigen's Court or whatever. Like, look, I like Chrissy Teigen. I think we have her cookbook. I think she's cool. Do I want to watch a show where she's a freaking judge? No. What the hell does Chrissy Teigen have to do with being a judge? Like it goes back to like the freaking Kanye West meme where it's just like, where he's like, did you know that Lady Gaga is the creative director of Polaroid? He's like, I like some of the Gaga stuff, but what does Lady Gaga know about cameras? Like, it's like there's no mix there, you know, like there's nothing connecting it. So yeah, Quibi's dumb. They, instead of focusing on the content, they focused on having celebrities, and then that would hopefully bring people together. Jeffrey Katzenberg, who's an absolute dum-dum, in my opinion. His biggest thing and his biggest excuse whenever he would do these interviews was COVID. They're like, oh, COVID's the reason why we're not watching this thing. It's the reason why we can't really get any traction on this. All this, all that, right? Whatever it might be. When in reality, streaming went up massive. Streaming was huge growth during COVID because people are home. And that's and one of the excuses is like, oh well, it's short form content. It's supposed to be like when you're driving around and you're traveling and you're doing all this stuff. That's all fine and dandy. If that's the case, what they should have done immediately after COVID hit is, instead of releasing their episodes week by week, they just put them all one blast.
Yep.
Because then what that does is it lets you go through the entire season of a show without having to watch a 15-minute episode and then waiting a week and then another 15-minute episode. You're going to lose interest. You're not having the viewer sit in the TV enough time to create a sense of investment, you know? So you're not invested to a show. It's why HBO's episodes have to be like 45 minutes to an hour and 20 minutes long, because they have you invest in the show with your time. Reason why most episodes are 30 minutes for shows, because they have you invest in stuff. Number one, Quibi should have done that. They should just release everything at once. They didn't, because they were dead set on their ways, because they're dumb, and they're gone now. They should have immediately been able to stream onto TVs. They didn't, because they're really dumb, and now they're gone now. They should have stopped investing into A-list celebrities. They didn't. They're dumb, so they're gone now. It's like in everything that they did, it was a perfect example of what like an exec that's been in the business for 30 plus years. It's what you get when you combine an exec that's been in the business for 30 plus years, a lot of money, and way too much hubris, way too much like, I can't fail. I'm an industry titan. I've been in here for this long. Dumb. Very dumb, very stupid all around. I will say this till the cows come home, dude. I'm not humble about it. I called it to the month. I said I gave Quibi 6 months. 6 months I gave Quibi. When did it go down?
5 months in like 3 weeks.
No. It was 6 months. I called it on the dot. I called it on the nose. And I pray for the day that I can meet Jeffrey Katzenberg and just tell him that I predicted the fall of Quibi.
$1 billion enterprise. Yeah. No, I definitely wanted to just bring up Quibi just so I could hear your rant. I think that's a huge lesson learned that I wanted for the rest of 2020, is just to hear the Luis rants and really tie it in and then talk about Quibi. But as for a lesson learned, aside from Quibi being dumb, what do you think the lesson learned is from a sample of Quibi? For me personally, it's
Luis
that
the next Gary Vee. What?
That's true. That's a very true.
Yeah,
statement.
can you whip up one of those Gary Vee clips where it's like the before from like 2006 and like the now, like
even though they're in the same year and it's 2020.
Yeah, it's like April or March. Now.
Well, it was pre Quibi launch, I think, when we talked about it. So, was it?
No,
yeah, it was after Quibi launched. Okay.
When Andre was on the podcast, I think was the first time, which was in June or July.
Yeah,
okay,
we talked about it prior. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, I mean, Quibi is interesting, but I think the main lesson learned there is just no matter how much money a company can get, if they don't know and solve actual problem in the market, you're gonna fail, and you're gonna get Luis to just rant about you for a solid 6 months straight. So I think that's the main lesson learned there. But I just wanted to bring that up because I just think that it's interesting how we analyzed it, and we're just watching it, just kind of like go down, go down, go down. And then we got the news and we're like, oh yes, we predicted this. This is fantastic. But yeah, I mean, in the chat, I did put if Luis's ranting is overrated or underrated. So if anybody wants to comment on that, if Nick, you want to put a poll up on overrated or underrated for Luis's rants, I would love to have everybody's opinion on these rants, because I think we should just dedicate a whole show for it. To be honest,
I'm not gonna come off as I don't want to muddy the votes or anything like that. But if I was a voting man, I'm not gonna vote. But if I was a voting man, I would say they're very underrated, because if you were a Quibi investor and you had heard my podcast in June, you should have sold all your Quibi stock. That's all I'm saying.
You should have shorted it.
Yeah, you should have shorted Quibi. You should have gotten out of there way before it was too late.
Oh man, no, I love it. I love it. No, I love these rants. But to go off into something a little bit different, we also did talk about some more abstract things on the show. So we talked about things that were less popular, more taboo conversations, like workers' unions, like community colleges. So I want to just quickly reflect on like why we did that, right? Why did we have? Go ahead.
Real quick, do we want to take an ad break to get another drink?
I would say yes. I think we're going into a good segment for a little. I'm done with my eggnog, so I would love to have a little.
It's going to take me a few minutes to make another one of these. So, how long's that ad?
It's 30 seconds.
30,
Definitely.
30.
It wouldn't work for you, man. You can stay. You can stay on camera. I'll literally make the drink on camera too. That's fine. But
I mean, yeah, I guess I can. Wait, hold on. What's the Twitch TOS? Can we not make Can we drink it on cam, but we can't make it on cam?
We gotta know these rules. We're not trying to break any.
I'm gonna go make it in the kitchen. It's gonna be pretty quick. I already pre-made the nog, so I'm just gonna plop a shot into the mug. I'll be back. Nick, run that ad, baby.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to kind of just chat. I mean, we can chat about these ones more specifically, but as for workers' unions and the community colleges, like why do we want to talk about those things?
I think because not a lot of people are talking about them. Like I think within business, union is a scary word, and I think within industry, community college is a scary word. So we want to try and show off what we want to bring people on that represent those two stakeholders and have a conversation with them. We talked to Kelly Bader about unions, and I think it helps people understand that unions aren't scary. They're not here to take away all profits from a business. The main goal of a union is to make sure that everyone just gets a fair and equal shake, and isn't being taken advantage of at the end of the day. And then when it comes to community colleges, a lot of people have negative connotations for them, when I think it shouldn't be there. I graduated from a community college, and here I am. Tons of people graduate from community colleges and they go on to do a lot of great stuff. I think that the notion of, if you didn't go straight to a 4-year, you're not doing it right, is outdated. And especially in a situation where there's so much student debt going on, you have to be able to be okay with going to community college, where you're paying a quarter of the price per year, if not less than that, to finish your first 2 years and then go to college and then do that, get that money there. If you get the same bachelor's degree as somebody else, but you end up with half the debt, I think you're better off that you went to community college than going straight to the 4-year university.
Yeah, and I kind of want to quickly kind of reflect on those 2 points. So as for workers' unions, I think the one interesting thing there is that, like you said, it has this taboo of being like a bad thing. Like it has this bad rep from like the 80s or something like that. And just kind of like Reagan and all that kind of time, and the pushback on like what labor unions are. But at the end of the day, the concept of it is to protect the worker. Yes, you have to look at both sides. Yes, there is situations where labor unions have caused issues overall, but good eggnog, a little strong for you.
Oh my god, I think it's just all the alcohol floated to the top. Oh my god.
Jeez. But yeah, I mean, as for workers' union, yeah, we really want to talk about that, because anybody who goes in the workforce, anybody who's working right now, know your own personal rights as an employee of a company, know how you're protected, and know that you have some independent rights of your own. I think COVID-19 is a good example of that, because a lot of people got laid off. Obviously, some companies just literally couldn't afford their employees, but you have to know your own protection as an employee of a company, because if you don't know it, you can be taken advantage of. And unfortunately, that was some cases that we had here in the Inland Empire for some businesses. And that's why we wanted to talk about that specifically, because it was a very timely thing, but also it doesn't get discussed in business school. I mean, I went through an undergrad and MBA degree, and we didn't really talk about labor unions, like, at all. And I think that's kind of a flaw on teaching business, because you should understand both sides of it. Because as an employer, if you don't understand how labor unions work, it's harder to negotiate or even work with them. So it's a two-sided issue. And then as for community colleges, I think one thing that COVID has shown is that, I mean, education has always been, in a sense, like formal education, overrated in a lot of aspects, because it's not adapting as quickly as times are going. Community colleges are actually adapting faster because they can provide offerings for a lot cheaper. So for anybody who really wants to like build out a career and actually kind of knows the trajectory path or wants to figure that out, do that in community college first, then figure that out in UC. That's my recommendation, because as of right now, the cost of you getting that experience, that college experience, well, obviously with COVID, that doesn't exist in the first place. And second of all, if you go through just the college process all the way to your 4 years, what I see from a lot of students is that their ambitions of why they went to college kind of like it dissolves as they go through that 4-year process, versus those that I see from a community college going to a UC, they're super ambitious for their 3rd and 4th year, and they really, really push things forward. So community college is more economic route, in my opinion. And even like, depending on where you want to work, your education is really not that important. It's more as the experience you have and the value you can provide to a company. And 2020, once again, it has shown that quite a bit, because the people that are getting hired right now are not because of their backgrounds and their education. It's more because of the skill sets they can provide to a company in distress. So that's kind of my 2 takes on that. So for Nikhil, as you joined a little bit late, we were just talking about like some of the taboo topics that we talked about this year, being like labor unions, community colleges. If you had any additional takes on that.
I mean, you were mentioning about how labor unions aren't really discussed in school and stuff, and I'll be very honest, I didn't know very much about like labor unions and stuff before this year, because I just never really like talked to anybody about it, never really had that information like passed on to me. And it's like when the 3 of us started talking about it, that's where I really started to learn more about them. So that's definitely, I agree. I think like there's actually a good amount of topics in business school that I wish we talked more about. So yeah.
Okay. And then from there, the next thing I wanted to kind of discuss is we had professors on the show. And I really enjoyed this. This is actually one of my favorite things that we had on the show this year, is having professors that we personally have had classes with, but to have more casual conversations about things that are pretty complicated, right? So our first professor we had on was Jonathan Lin. I had him for consumer behavior. Luis, I believe you had him for consumer behavior, or did you have him for another class?
Jonathan?
Yep.
I had Professor Lim for, I believe, 2 classes.
Okay. So yeah. So we had him on. Obviously, that was a great conversation to kind of chat with him about consumer behavior overall, and what does that mean for advertising and stuff like that. But do you guys have any takes on like having a professor on, having that casual conversation with them, and what that experience was like? Because we all have personal relationship with these professors, but I think the one issue that a lot of students have that they're going through college is that they automatically just see a professor as just like way above them, and they don't even want to communicate with them. They don't go to office hours. They don't try to have relationships with them. Yeah. But that's not the reality. As you go into your MBA, you have more of a personal relationship with your professors. But as undergrad students, most people don't really ever talk to their professors outside class, because they're scared to. They're afraid to send that email or set up a time to talk. So what was that experience like having our professors on our show and just chatting about things that we did classes with them?
Yeah, I thought 2 of the 3 professors that we had on the show, I didn't have classes with. And one thing I've said multiple times, like one of my regrets from college is not going to office hours nearly as much as I kind of wish I had. And what these episodes made me realize is that like professors are humans too, right? Like they're actually super chill, and it was like fun to talk to them, right? To be able to banter about like in and out and Shake Shack and stuff like that with professors, right? Like, yeah, at the end of the day, their job is to teach you, and it can be intimidating. But I think building those personal relationships with your professors, teachers, mentors, and stuff like that can really go a long way in the future. And I'm sure Luis can really talk about that for one thing.
Yeah, I 100% agree with everything that you just said. I mean, I think you really hit the nail on the head with everything. I just try, and I know that sounds very scary, but it's only scary the first time, like with anything, right? It's only scary the first time you do it, but then when and sometimes I'll be honest with you, I tried to make relationships with professors both at community college and at UCR that were really just not receptive, very cold. And if that's your first experience with trying to make a connection with a professor, you're gonna think that's every professor, and that's not the case. That guy or girl was just kind of an a-hole. Doesn't matter if they're a professor, or it doesn't matter. They could just be someone you meet on the street. Probably someone who wears a. I guarantee you that those professors are the ones that wear their masks like this. Like it's like they're the type of people who just they're gonna be mean regardless of the situation that they're in. Whereas, if you happen to try and nurture a relationship with a professor that is genuinely nice and caring and someone who's very these people are all intelligent, so it's one of those things to where like it's night and day difference. Like some of the coolest stuff for me is like after graduation and everything like that is being able to hang out with these professors that you've nurtured a friendship with, an honest friendship with, and talk about theory that interests you over like a beer.
Yep.
It's honestly some of the coolest stuff. Like I honestly feel like some of the most like, oh shit, I didn't think about it like that moments where like over a beer talking to like a professor or two, when you bring up something like, why is it like this, and then they just poke into your, and the way that professors are good at what they do, they're basically psychologists. They'll poke into your brain and make you realize why it is that way, as opposed to just telling you flat out why it is that way.
They want you to come to the conclusion.
Even when you're just having a conversation with them with beer, which is, I think, is really, really something to admire. But those are things that, like, you go to a club, you take some Jello shots, and you talk about management. Like this is just what happens in the professional world. You have fun, but you grow relationships and you talk to them like people.
Yep.
And I consider Jonathan a friend. And that's something that not a lot of people can say about the professors.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people it's transactional. They go in, they go out, they get their diploma, and they leave. They never think about them again.
Yep.
But I truly do consider him a friend, and I think it's something that I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you brought up was a good point, and it's kind of like the origins of the brew in general, which is like when you have like coffee chats or you have like a beer with people anywhere from the world, from different backgrounds, and you just chat about stuff, right, in a very casual setting, you'll be shocked with the amount of stuff you'll learn. And this is where like conversations have to get more sophisticated, and it's very good to do this with professors because they understand they research this stuff. They understand theory down to the T, and they can make you question a lot of things. So obviously post-COVID, I mean, the one thing I wanted to do, and I talked with some professors at UCR, CSUSB, in the entrepreneurship department, because one thing for entrepreneurs especially is like over beers is where a lot of ideas start happening. And just having those, like, go to a brewery, grab a beer with like different professors, different entrepreneurs, and just chat about stuff, and just go in there with an intent to learn. It's quite phenomenal how much information you get out of it. And as both of you guys brought up, it's like when you start building these relationships with people, they become your friend, and you can really like learn a lot more when you are willing to ask these questions and just feel comfortable with each other and just talk about things casually. And I recommend that, because if anybody's really curious about business and really growing an understanding of management, understanding and growing of consumer behavior, understanding and growing of organizational behavior. I mean, the stuff that we're talking with Ingram on this show blew my mind, because I didn't take those classes you guys were doing. And I was just thinking in my head, like, damn, this is so fascinating. Like the whole like resentment from an employee to the employer to the employee, right? And how that resentment happens and how you'd rather have someone hate you versus being undecided with you. I was like, damn, that is interesting, because if someone's undecided, they're more likely to leave because they just kind of are in this constant battle with themselves. Like, do I like this person or not? But if someone hates you, they hate you. They already decided. They're just like, you know what? I'm going to go into work. Fuck this guy. It doesn't matter. And I'm like, okay, I get that. Like, that makes sense to me. And I would never have learned that. I never would have understood that until I talked, like we had that conversation with Ingram, right? So that's the one thing that I really want to hone in when we go into 2021 is having more professors on the show from different backgrounds, right? Like we want to get computer science professors on here. We want to get other professors in different areas, get other entrepreneurs, but we really want to talk about things that they know so well and they can just explain to us. And our job is just to be the people that are completely oblivious to any of the information and just ask those basic questions so we can learn ourselves. Because this show, I think the one cool thing about the Brew overall is that, I don't know about you guys, but like I learn a lot from every discussion we have. Like that's one thing I always look forward to the Saturdays, because we're trying to kind of create this conversation about things that we normally don't talk about in our everyday lives. Like we talk about Warzone, we talk about Call of Duty. We're not going to talk about management all the time. But when we do, I want to have somebody who really knows it and can explain it to us, and we can ask those hard questions that we weren't like we didn't talk about in classroom because we didn't get tested on it, right? And I think that's one beauty of having these professors on the show, is having those conversations overall. Is there any takes from you guys as for like having professors talking about academics or any of these complicated things that, to reflect on 2020?
I just wanted to bring up that you kind of touched on it a little bit, but yeah, it's been nice when we bring on professors, just because during the work week we're working, that's on our mind. During the afternoons, maybe we play a couple games of Warzone, but we try to like turn off our brains and not have to think so much. So it's nice to just be able to listen and just absorb information that you've never thought about, or maybe information that you've never spun in that way in your brain. I that's why I like having professors on, just so they can tell me words and I go, well, I never thought about it that way. Like maybe am I the bad guy, you know?
I guess to ask both of you guys then is like, what was one of the things that either Professor Rich, Jonathan Lim, or Ingram said on the show that made you be like, huh, I didn't think it that way? Because I want to kind of get to that point. I know mine personally, and I can share first if you guys want me to, but I just want to kind of get your guys' takes on like, what was that thing that really caught you by surprise and been like, okay, I didn't really think about it that way, but that makes sense to you?
Yeah, actually what you said, I don't want to like take something that you already said, but like what you said about employees who are like stuck in the middle, right? I can relate to it indirectly, right? Because like my own family members are in that situation that Dr. Ingram was describing about, like, you know, having a boss that they don't know if they like or dislike, or they're like right in the middle, and there's just like a lot of resentment there. So just like listening to that whole thing was just like, oh my god, like you just kind of spoke about something that I've been experiencing with a family member. That's just like, that makes so much sense, right? Yeah, that really stood out to me.
Yeah, I think with me, it was the conversation that we had with Professor Rich, where it was like, what we talked about, kind of where colleges are and like the future of that, and how we should be leaning more towards technology as opposed to anything else. Like really, like technically teaching students as opposed to not, which is happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing definitely that me and Professor Rich have talked a lot about, but every single time he talks about it, like I get more ideas from it, which is like making classroom experiences an actual experience. Like what he talked about, like he creates experiences. He doesn't teach, he creates experiences. And I understood that because it was the same way when I took his classes. He was asking like, okay, what do you guys, this is a new time we're doing this class. Like we're trying to redesign this class. What do you guys want to learn? And I unfortunately got coding into that classroom, and a lot of people were pissed about it because I literally introduced coding into IS, but I was like, why isn't coding in IS? Like that doesn't make sense to me, right? Why aren't we doing Python in information systems when that drives in most coding languages, or JavaScript, right? And the one thing that really caught my attention there, and it came from a lot of conversations we had about like doing like boot camps or doing like different community colleges or certifications and stuff like that is where formal education should go towards is teaching these fundamentals in an experience. That's it. Like, still teach the fundamentals. Don't try to teach everything, because the job of a university is not to make you the best worker in XYZ job. They're to make you understand the scope of it. But they need to make an experience, because I think where education, if formal education keeps going this route, it's going to die off. It's just the textbook to exam methodology. That for me just doesn't work. Now that we have new technologies coming in, like augmented reality, like I would love to learn about supply chain by just like looking at my phone and just seeing like a supply chain line in front of me and seeing how the product gets manufactured. What does that mean to get into the store, right? And I can visualize on my phone. That's where education I think is going to go towards. And it always fascinates me whenever I talk with Professor Rich about these things, because we see eye to eye on a lot of stuff, but then he pushes back on like where I think some technology might have application, like what he talked about on the show, like blockchain for voting. And he pretty much said like it's not a good idea. And I definitely get his view on it. My whole view on it is that I agree it's not good right now, but I believe in it in about 15 years or 20 years from now. Because I think that we are so like, we're so novice on the concept of what you can do with blockchain right now that we haven't gone to that point where you can implement it correctly. And I think that's what's going to derive it. But even in the world of technology, technology doesn't solve problems. Technology is an aspect to solve a problem. So if you think that blockchain will solve it, that won't be true. And that's why, like, for example, this election, they had paper documentation for everything so that they can do recounts and all these things. That's smart. And that should always exist, because if you don't have a paper documentation, don't have a paper trail, you lose the value of what you're trying to do, and you can't actually reinforce and make sure that that technology actually did what it was supposed to do. But I mean, overall, I think from having these professors on it, it made me question a lot of my thoughts, and also made me understand that you can look at things in different perspectives. Doesn't mean that one is more right than others, but there's theory behind both aspects. And I'd highly encourage anybody who's listening today to look at those episodes with our professors, and listen to our conversations with them, because it's honestly fantastic to talk with those that you've studied under and learned a lot from. To go into the next kind of category of shows that we had a lot of shows that were just talking about like entrepreneurship overall, right? So in a lot of our episodes, we just talked about entrepreneurship overall. I don't necessarily want to talk about the episodes overall, but I want to talk about our lessons learned as entrepreneurs ourselves, right? So if you were to boil down this year, there's a lot of successes and a lot of failures. I'd love to hear from you guys both, just like a couple of successes that you've seen as an entrepreneur and like things that you didn't expect to happen, and then a couple of things that you've seen as a failure and like lessons learned. Because now we have more drinks in us. This is the time to really start reflecting on 2020 and understanding where we could have made better decisions, because that's all entrepreneurship all is. Like you don't know what you're getting yourself into. And if you don't reflect on it, you're going to make the same mistakes. And our job as entrepreneurs is just keep pushing forward and learn from those micro failures that we might have had.
So is this just internally, like successes and failures internally, or is this just what we've witnessed, like in industry?
Like on a personal level, right?
Personal level. So within the brew, within Free Logic, what are some failures and successes? Because we talk a lot about like, I mean, our platform is celebrating failures. So might as well talk a little bit about what we've witnessed as some failures or successes within this year.
I think one success that comes to mind is the realization that our team is happy. I think a lot of entrepreneurs can easily, especially if they're building a team, can kind of get caught up with their own personal gains and stuff. But something that really drives me is to be able to build a team and, you know, see everyone grow along with the company and yourself or myself. So one thing I've done to, I guess, strengthen the bonds within the company and to, I guess, build stronger relationships with some of the team members is to have just like one-on-one meetings every 2 to 3 weeks. And after a few months of that, like I realized that I basically directly learned from them that they're like extremely happy, and, you know, like their decision to join this startup right out of college was something that they're happy with and they don't regret. So yeah, that's definitely a big success on my end.
Definitely. Any successes or failures from your end, Luis?
I honestly think it was that one. I mean, not to piggyback off of you, Nikhil, but going into it, I think the three of us, and one of the reasons why the three of us work so well is that we disagree on the right stuff and we agree on the right stuff.
Okay.
So like
we're always right. I like it.
Yeah. So we agree on mainly on ethics a lot.
Yeah.
Which I think is something that is nice. There's no butting heads really with us when it comes down to, does this decision positively or negatively impact the team? More often than not, we're all in agreement that we want to minimize negative and absolutely maximize positive. So I think its big success is, let's not take it for granted the fact that we have a team of 10 people, including us. Yep. So 7 people, not including us. That's no small feat. That's something that I think I was thinking about it today, in the morning, and especially when you were talking about it, as you were like, oh, we grew the team to 10 people now, and like, I think the more I hear it, the more it really starts to like sink in, that's like the most terrifying sentence that I can hear, but at the same time, one of the most proud sentences that I can hear. Where it's just like terrifying in the sense of, okay, now I have to make sure that these other 7 people,
we feed them.
Exactly. Now I have to make sure that we're feeding these 7 people. While at the same time, it's that bit of pride that it's just like, we're feeding 7 people. I think it's cool, and I think that the team that we have right now, and you've mentioned this before, Val, but the team that we have now, I don't see us having to need to bolster this team much, if any, especially going into 2021. I think everybody has the skill sets that we need to take this business to a position where we can maybe switch from feeding them Ritz crackers to feeding them at the Ritz-Carlton. It's like, it's so it's one of those things to where like it's gonna be fun. It's something that I'm really happy for. As far as do we want to switch to failures, or do you want to say your success, Val?
I would just say success overall is, yeah, I mean, honestly, like it's so weird because I never thought of it before, like having to pay payroll, but like honestly paying payroll is so satisfying. It's like just being able to put in hours to be like, yeah, you get that paycheck, or like just signing off on a check. Like it's so satisfying because it just means that we're creating value, right? Like we're creating output. And I just, like Nikhil, like we were talking about, our initial plan for Free Logic and The Brew and all these things we're gonna work on it as a side hustle for until like 2022. Like that was our original plan. Like if we look back and what we messaged each other, it was till 2022. You work at Deloitte, I work at Esri. The rest of our team, we can fund and make sure that they can do their thing. We're still gonna work part time and make our dues and invest back in the company, whatever we have to do. Then we both went all in. And my decision came more because at that time, like I really didn't have a choice because there's no way I could have done Free Logic, Edge Sound Research, and Esri at the same time. So I had to make that jump. But the decision for you to jump in, decision for Luis to jump all in, like all these decisions started happening. And for me, that's a huge success because what happened was we created a snowball effect of like positive outlook. And like, I don't believe in the whole concept of like manifestation. A lot of people say like, if you write it down, it's going to happen. But don't get me wrong. If you write it down and you're willing to do the actions behind it, at least good things will happen. It won't happen as you plan, but things will happen in the right momentum. And I think that's the biggest indicator, because the one thing I've learned from having calls with managing partners for the TechStars Accelerate programs and stuff like that is biggest indicator of success for startup is momentum. It's not traction. It's not sales. It's momentum, meaning that you're hiring people, you're moving your organization in the right direction, you're getting higher view counts, you're doing whatever you can. You're creating momentum. And I can proudly say that within 2020, we've created a lot of momentum. And that's why I'm super excited for 2021, because that momentum is only getting started. Like we're going to really start picking up as we go into 2021. But that does not mean that we didn't have failures. So now kind of switching the gear into failures, I'll let you guys kind of share first. I'll at least bring up what I believe as being, there's a couple micro failures that I think we've had, and it's important to state them because no company goes just through like success. There's no such thing as that.
Yeah.
It's ups and downs. You have to readjust and reevaluate things. So for you guys, like what would you see as, not necessarily like as a failure because we've adjusted from them, but as things that were learning curves for us as building a company?
I feel like we all have the same one in our minds. I know that it's, I mean, going off the conversation that we had, this last week, where it's like milestone setting, I think, specifically with like us. I wouldn't necessarily call it a failure because it's not like we necessarily failed at something. It's more of a learned lesson that I don't think a lot of, I mean, I haven't seen a lot of people talk about it online. And it's setting the right milestones. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're setting milestones and goals. I think are different.
Yep.
You know, when you set a goal, there's no real tangibleness to it. It's just you achieve something. Whereas with milestones, you have to pick how you are tracking that metric. At the beginning of this year, we made the decision to choose time as a form of metric tracking. So we set like a month. We said, okay, by January or February of 2021, this thing is going to happen, you know? Whereas in reality, what that just ended up doing was now we're realizing, well, this thing actually isn't going to happen. And that isn't because it's never going to happen. It's just because we set the metric in a way that just kind of puts us up for disappointment.
Yeah.
So it's something to where, had we just said, okay, instead of the metric being time, the metric is resources, how many resources we have, that would have been a completely different thing. Yeah. And it would have, I think, for the three of us at least, I mean, I can speak for myself. Obviously, you guys can answer, but for myself, it would have been something where I don't look at it and go, oh shit. Like now I look at it and go, okay, well, we're getting there. We're almost there. You know, we'll keep chugging along. And you don't have that kind of, oh crap moment, what's going on here? But I mean, that to me, it's not, I don't classify it entirely as a failure. I maybe a month ago I was looking at it like us, like maybe did we fail? But like with some reflection, I think the realization came that we just had we were tracking the wrong metric.
Absolutely. How about you,
Nico? For me, so yeah, this is just like a bunch of like micro failures around like the same thing. I think it comes down to like communication and making assumptions that, you know, the people that you're working with or the people I'm working with, whether it be you, Val, or you, Luis, or somebody else on the team, are on the same page. And upon seeing things not work out properly, or, you know, things getting set back because one of us thought one of us was doing something when in reality they weren't, or whatever, made me realize that I need to just communicate more, just keep asking questions. And then that brings up a whole other thing, just keep asking questions.
Yep.
If I'm unsure about something, I need to ask, right? And
build a culture around that.
Build a culture about, that's something that we're trying to do for the entire team as well. But even within like us three, right? Like I've learned over the last 2 years now that I need to keep asking questions. Even in Deloitte and stuff, I realized I need to keep asking questions. I tend to be quieter in a lot of things, and I kind of just like let things like process in my head and try to figure it out myself. But I have learned multiple times the hard way that is not the right way to go about things. It's just I need to be comfortable with potentially, like I need to not have the mindset that asking this question is going to make me look stupid, right? Yeah. Even though it might, but like I'd rather just get it right. And, you know, be a little bit uncomfortable asking about something that I don't know as much about than go through this entire process of assuming something and then doing it wrong and then having to redo everything, you know? So that's just like a bunch of micro failures from years, honestly. And I think now towards the end of 2020, it's still something I'm working on. But I think it's something that I am actively trying to get better at.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me personally, like I think the biggest thing would be like understanding in an early stage company how to set up functional roles. I think that's honestly like a big lesson learned for me, because what I mean by that is in order for a business to hit objectives and hit numbers, you have to have someone who's dedicated for biz dev, or the company has to understand biz dev. Super important. And that's any company. If you're ever, even if you're working at a company, this is why the business development team is so important. And the marketing team has to align with the business development team of any organization, because that's how you drive growth. And I think one huge mistake, not necessarily mistake, it just kind of happened because we were hiring so quickly and we were trying to build a team and all these things, was I wasn't thinking how much time it would take from me to do business development stuff and not be able to train somebody else to do the stuff that I need to do to push us forward and get the right skill set in the right hands of somebody on our team, so that you don't create bottlenecks. Because I think one mistake, at least for me personally, that ended up happening was I started getting so caught up in internal work that we had to do that I wasn't able to do external outreach to do some things that I wanted to do to grow our business faster, right? So the important thing there is, like, within your organization and company, everybody should understand sales. Every employee of a company is a sales rep of your company. And that's one thing that as we go into 2021, I will make sure that I train everybody and everybody's adequately feels comfortable with the concept of business development, because good sales is not sales. You don't have to actually like sell what you're doing. Your job is to identify opportunities, align with what value you can provide to them, and have honest conversations with them and do customer prospecting. That's why right now we're talking about like a 3W framework. And honestly, I didn't even know that. I knew about sales and sales frameworks, but I didn't know about the 3W framework. And I'm happy I learned about it from having conversations with Emis from Techstars Austin, who recommended me to read his book and to understand his concepts and having some honest conversations with him about it. But something called the 3W framework, if you don't know what it is, definitely check it out. Super important, because what it teaches you as you're building a company is you need to really, really deep down, like dive into who's your audience, what are you particularly selling to them, and why do they care? And you have to be able to put that down to the metric, because if you cannot provide a metric to a customer, you can't scale your business. And that was a lesson learned, because a lot of the stuff we were doing early on was through pull marketing, so through word of mouth, and it grew to a certain extent. But to get to that next level, you have to tie it in with actual business development efforts. And as we go into 2021, that was a lesson learned. And I definitely want to emphasize that and that's why you have to organize a company to have somewhat of functional roles, or X amount of time goes into growing your business, because you can't just rely on your business being where it's at. Because as you hire more people, there's more expenses, right? As more expenses come in, you have to offset that cost. And I think that was something that wasn't necessarily short-sighted, but it was just that we moved very quickly. And looking back, that's one thing I wish we could have taken a little bit bigger step in time to really understand it. Is there a countdown timer? Because if there is, I absolutely loved it, because I'll throw that shit out at least every single time otherwise. Appreciate the timer. We'll go into the next topic then. But any close off ideas or anything else for successes or failures, or anything you think anybody else should learn from our personal experiences building Free Logic and The Brew?
No, and I think that's on purpose. Everybody's experience is going to be completely different. You might not see the value in bringing on a team of people that like the one thing that we invested in heavy on is people. Like we didn't, could we have done do we think that we could have done what we're doing now with just like 5 people? I personally don't think so. Some people do think that. And some people are okay with spending 80 hours on a particular project a week, you know? But I think that we saw that we needed to build a team out, and we did just that. We said, okay, we're not in this for the quick money. If we were in it for the quick money, it would just be the 3 of us. Like at the end of the day, and it, you know, and we would be splitting everything between the 3 of us, and that would be it. We're in it for the long haul. We want to build a team, and we want to build an empire to some extent in Riverside and in the Inland Empire, to show off that LA big city grade marketing and big city grade business strategy isn't something that you can only find in the big cities. It's something that you can find locally, and help support your business. So I mean, if a company wants advice, if there's any entrepreneurs out there that want advice, reach out to us. Reach out to us on social media. I mean, reach out to me on Twitter, reach out to me on LinkedIn, wherever you want. I'll get on a call with you. And I'll let you know what's going on. I'll let you know what I would do in your situation. But at the end of the day, you got to go through it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, that kind of ties into what I wanted to talk about next is like, we're right now going through a rebrand process, and we've learned a lot, and we've reshaped our team because of adding more people to the team. You want to make sure your team as a collective understands the vision that you're going towards, and everybody buys into that. And we did that together. So we did this rebrand process, and we're going to be announcing more about it as we head into New Year. We're not going to give too many announcements about it yet. But I think the one thing I really wanted to quickly talk about, because it ties into this podcast, why do we care so much about small businesses, nonprofits, artists, and startups? Because I think that's an important thing, because it really drives why we have certain guests on this show, why we do what we do, and just like the idea behind this entire business. Because as you talked about, our entire thing is it's 5 to 10 year vision. Like, we don't expect anything in the short term, and that's why we take a lot of sacrifices and risk in the short term, because our entire vision is it's a grandiose thing. So as for you guys, like, why specifically do we care about small businesses in the Inland Empire, nonprofits, early stage startups, and then artists?
My perspective is that there just aren't that many companies out there, or that many brands out there, that are dedicating their time and energy to support these groups. And I think these groups are all groups that we can connect ourselves with, so we have some sort of passion towards helping them, and we figure that, you know, our skills can be used to support them while nobody else is, or not many other people or companies are there to support them. Like, think about it. I haven't seen any like other marketing companies like spending their time with nonprofits. A lot of nonprofits need help. I haven't seen too many marketing companies, at least in the Inland Empire, for like bands and artists that don't really have a name yet, right? Same with small businesses and stuff. A lot of small businesses are struggling because, well, like other agencies and stuff, they want to work with like the bigger companies. So it's more of, it's a mix of like our passion, our skill set, and the overall opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Luis?
I agree with Nikhil. I think that everything you said, and then to tack that on, every big business at some point was a small business. So I think that I think it's important to be able to look early on and make that discernment. But I think at the same time, one thing that we're doing, and something that definitely shouldn't be kind of not recognized here, is how much emphasis we put on fit when it comes to our clients. I mean, most nonprofits are gonna be a fit with us because they're nonprofits. They are some sort of cause, but I guarantee, my goodness, I guarantee that we're gonna run into situations where we get tapped by a company who we don't agree with.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And I think that that it's something that you know, that decision gets made. Why we chose the companies that we chose, it's for a lot of reasons. We like them. We think there's growth. We think that what they're doing is good. We support, like, at the end of the day, we support them.
Yep.
If we needed them, we would use them, and I think that is the biggest indicator for us on why we choose these companies. And at the same time, it's something that we've said from like pretty early on is we want to invest in Inland Empire.
Yeah.
Like we want to, this place here, the IE, has so much growth potential that is right now only being tapped by supply chain companies that and other companies aren't really seeing how this area is beneficial. The fact that it's an hour away from everything centrally, the fact that it's so central, it can kind of get stuff, land prices are cheaper, everything. I think there's a multitude of reasons on why we go about this and why we choose the companies that we choose, but fit at the end of the day, I think, is the biggest one.
Yeah, I mean, for me specifically, like the reason why small businesses, like my mom's small business owner, that's always been an important thing for me, and I understand that small businesses, biggest thing that lacks for them is access to capital and access to understanding of technology and what that can do for their business. So that definitely for us is why we want to help level the playing field there. Nonprofits, yeah, as you said, Nikhil, nobody really focuses on nonprofits, and I think it's a disgrace because nonprofits get taken advantage of by some digital marketing companies as they know there's a lack of understanding and they can charge a premium rate. And it's honestly pretty sad to see. And we definitely want to show that there's people that do care about nonprofits, care about the impact they're trying to make, and give back to them. Startups, I mean, we all love innovation. We're mini tech nerds in different areas, and we want to see startups thrive. For us specifically, like that's why we care about early stage startups, because we want to see the new stuff. And we want to work with the new companies and really see what is about to happen and be able to enable them. And then artist wise, I mean, we all love music in one essence or another. We've all participated in some kind of creative artist stuff, whether it be from our own personal art to being involved in music. And honestly, same thing there. Musicians, especially now because of COVID, creatives are getting hurt extremely hard because it's so hard. Can't do gigs, you can't do performances. If you're actual like physical artists, you're making paint artists and that, you have to have an e-commerce platform, and if you don't know how to do that, that also makes it harder for you. So I care a lot about the creatives and the artists because they really show and express like different personalities, and I've always loved that, especially music. But I'm super excited to see what we do for companies heading into 2021, because we now do have a great portfolio of work that we've completed in 2020, and think about it, we've only done that in 6 months. But the way I want to end up today's show is just to close out with, what do you guys want to see from the Brew in 2021, and what do you want to see from Free Logic in 2021? So we can just kind of full circle, bring it right back where we're heading into 2021, as this is the last Brew episode for the rest of this year.
I think I want to do very binary statements here, very absolutes. Either no, I'm not going to say that. I want to I want to see growth. And I know that's a very kind of non-answer. But at the end of the day, that's what I want. I want to see growth, and I want to see growth in a good way. Whether that's us getting more subs and followers on Twitch, and us getting more subscribers on YouTube, and getting more followers on our social media platforms. That's all stuff that I want to see. And specifically for the Brew. And I think on top of that, one thing I definitely want to see is with the Brew switching over to being a part of like, Free Logic Studios and all this stuff, is seeing where the show can go. Yeah. And that's in a lot of interesting ways that we can go, whether that's different camera setups, different guest setups, different everything. I think is like mini shows. Yeah. Having different shows, something that we've talked about here, a little behind the scenes. We talked about doing not just a Saturday show, but having other people within our company do shows throughout the week, whether that's just Communist Thursdays with me, or shows like anybody on the team. I think it's something that is going to be fun to explore and kind of see where it goes.
Yep. How about you, Nico?
Yeah, I mean, in general, what he said. I think for the company as a whole, when all of us went full time, I think our just growth, like there was definitely a spike in our growth in many different ways when we all went full time, right? Like I think that extra investment of time that we put in really changed things for the better of our company. So I think it's definitely been a busy few months. So after, these next few weeks of a holiday break and stuff, we're all going to be refreshed. And I'm really expecting and hoping for that. We're a lot busier in a good sense, right? With working with like great clients of different types, expanding into some different industries, and getting like the entire team involved with, providing value and providing value for the company, of course, but also to different companies like our clients and things like that. And then for the brew, of course, growth as well, right? I think this year, especially when Luis got involved, like we've definitely grown a lot. Like we have this whole platform, and I think we have a lot more opportunity to gain reach and get seen and create partnerships, and also celebrate failure, and like really spread the message around that, right? Like we started our Failure Monday series, and I'm excited to see that take off, and for us to be like a center point of that conversation.
Yeah.
Can I just bring up that no greater failure of mine in regards to the brew? I think you know where this is going, Nikhil. No greater failure existed.
Dude, it wasn't that bad, man.
Dude, here's the thing. I watched it. I finally got around to watching it because
I watched it too. It wasn't that bad.
No. You're not paying attention to the right things. You listened to my voice, I think. That's the issue. You were listening to my voice. I'm a professional, Nikhil. All right? My voice is not going to waver during hardship. Look into my eyes during that video.
You're overreacting. Chill.
Absolutely not. Look into my eyes during that video. And you can see that behind these glossy browns was despair. Absolute pits of despair. If no one knows what we're talking about, go on our YouTube.
No, they don't.
No one knows. Go on our YouTube, and there is an episode. Where's the over underrated? Actually, let me go to playlist real quick. There's an over underrated. Me and Nikhil did with Professor Rich. That to say here it is. To say that it was Nikhil slamming me down for no real reason, I think would be an understatement.
I mean, I don't think there's no reason. I mean, it's aside from that one section, I think it goes the other way all the time. So I think that was a fair.
I just don't think it was fair though, because like normally, look, we've talked about this a lot.
Is it fair every other time when you guys? Like...
No, look, hold on. We talk about this a lot. We talk about how much shit me and Val give you, and how one day you're gonna get us back. I never, in all of the, like, I ran through scenarios in my brain. Okay, how can Nikhil get us back? So I can mentally prepare myself for the emotional toll it might take. Never once in the scenarios I ran did I think that you would single me out like an innocent little calf in a meadow, and just start drilling at me. On the day that Val was supposed to be there, you see, attacking the both of us.
I'm sorry, you didn't have Val there to protect you.
No, it wasn't even to protect me. It was more.
I would have joined in.
Yeah, you would have started right. That's the thing, and I think it's like, when when your parents yell at you, and it's just like when one parent takes you to the side and says like you did a very bad thing. For some reason that hurts a lot more because you're being singled out than when both of your parents tell you you've done a bad thing, because you go, oh, all right, well, whatever, it's the both of you saying it. Yeah, it's messed. Whatever, I messed up, but whatever. I think that because you singled me out, and we had a very wonderful guest on that day, I felt like a personal attack was slamming into me.
All right. So what I'm looking for the brew and free logic, aside from Luis's rant and Nick Hill's professional answer, is I'm looking forward to some new episodes that we can do over flights of beer. So we'll be introducing brew at 5 o'clock. We've been waiting to do that. Obviously, with COVID restrictions, we have to figure out how to do that. If you don't know, a little Easter egg for Free Logic would be we had a show called The Buzz, which we're going to be relaunching as the brew at 5 o'clock. We don't have an official announcement for it yet. We will get more as we go to it, but we'll be interviewing entrepreneurs and other special guests over a flight of beer, similar to Hot Ones, but over different beers, and they do get pretty strong, and the conversation gets hilarious. So we definitely want to introduce that again, as well as some micro shows that we're talking about, getting our team involved, making this a full-on platform for non-stop content, and really rolling out things like the failure stories and fully pledging it out. So we have a lot of stuff ahead for the brew. And then as for Free Logic, can't wait for a rebrand. Can't wait to do other major projects that we're currently working on. We have an awesome portfolio that we're going to showcase in early February. So stay tuned for that as well. But I mean, I'm super excited for what's ahead for us as a company and everything that's happened. But before we close out for today's show and finish off our drinks, any last comments for the year of 2020 before we close out the brew for this year?
Should I take a bite of this cinnamon stick now?
Go ahead. I want to see your reaction.
Please don't. I'm telling you not to.
I'm telling you to do it.
I thought you wanted me to.
No.
It's not wet enough yet, so
just keep moistening that wick. Going into 2021. Do I have any words? Do I have any words for 2020? Yeah, go fuck yourself. Like that's like I think
me?
No, not you. Of course I wouldn't say it to you. I'm saying to 2020.
Okay, it sounded like you were saying that to me for like.
No, I wouldn't dare say that to you.
Not on camera. All right, continue.
Yeah, not on camera at least. Yeah, go suck a rock or something. You know, it's like 2020 was a year, and here's the thing: I battle with this mentally in my head so much, where it's just like when I read an article that's just like 20% of small businesses have closed, and then I go, wow, that fucking sucks, and then we talk about how much we've grown in the latter half of 2020. It's like, you know, I'm constantly battling with that, like, well, that really sucks for them, but I'm glad that they didn't suck for us. You know, it's this constant back and forth, but I'm excited for 2021. The vaccine's getting shelled out. Pfizer is gonna turn us into snails, and Moderna is gonna turn us into zombies. So I'm excited to get the vaccine eventually. Happy to report that my mother and father are safely in Mexico, where people take this virus seriously. So they're very safe. Apparently everybody wears masks from what my mother says. Yeah, 2021 I think is going to be a good year. I don't think it's going to be now here's the thing. I'm curbing my expectations.
It's a good year. Yeah, it's a good year.
It's going to 2022.
There we go.
That's going to be that
year.
That's going to be that year is going to be a movie. 2022
great. It's the Great Gatsby.
Yeah, honestly, it's the 20s. The roar. We're literally in the roar in 20s. We just had our Black Black Tuesday.
Yeah.
We just had our Black Tuesday. Stocks are down. We're doing it in reverse. I think it was
stocks are up, but
yeah, exactly. 2021. It's not going to get fun until like winter, when I think most people get shamed into taking the vaccine, because for some reason there's still 40% of the U.S. population that does not want to take the vaccine. So I think end of the year, once the people who are gonna get it, and then Ticketmaster says, "Oh, sorry, you can't go to this concert unless you have the vaccine." Yeah, and once they're like, "What do you mean I can't go to EDC?" and they're like tripping out like that, I think that's when people are gonna start getting the vaccine, not because they want to, but because they're being shamed into getting the vaccine. And then 2022, once people are nice and vaccinated up, once the zombies have turned into zombies and those who survived, I think 2022 is going to be a fantastic year. Networking is going to be back full swing. Trade shows are going to be back full swing. um, kissing your boys on the lips after getting a few flights of beers. It's back in, you know. It's all these things. All these things are coming back in full swing. And I for one am excited for 2022. 2021, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be better. It's gonna be better than 2020. Mainly because we're used to it, you know. But 2022, I think, is gonna be a chef's kiss year.
Sounds good. How about you, Nico?
Are you excited to kiss the boys in 2022?
I don't. Maybe.
There you go.
I would have to say that 2020 was probably the most reflective year I've had, and probably many have had. And definitely a year of change. It's funny. I was just telling somebody was just asking me like, what have I been up to, like out of work, and I realized the two things I said were reading and playing video games, and those are two things I never did. Nearly as much as like I have been, right? And that's like a minor thing, but I think 2020 really put us out of our comfort zones and like forced us to kind of pick up new hobbies, figure out new ways to make use of our time and just adapt and stuff. And I found like I used to hate reading, but I found that like reading is the way I'm like learning a lot of stuff now, and it's just like a way for me to kind of disengage from the world every morning and kind of just like, you know, all this negative stuff is happening out here. I'm just like in here right now, and I am involved in the story. And same with video games, right? It's kind of just like a distraction, and it's fun, right? And I'm glad I like rediscovered it, especially just like watching you guys like destroy people in Warzone. That's like insane.
Oh,
but,
you haven't seen me in other games. That's my.
Are we playing
fallback
after
game.
this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Anybody who wants to play Warzone,
we can keep
jump
the
in.
stream alive. Yeah, we can keep the stream alive, and we can just start playing video games. Nick just has to change, update it from saying just chatting to Warzone.
And that was one thing for the brew. Is like I'm dead set. We're starting free Logic gaming. Like it's gonna happen. Like there's gonna be a gaming setup tied into free Logic as we head into the new year. But before I state my mind, is there anything else for you, Nico? So is that your statement? Because we just kind of jumped in.
No, you're good. Kind of lost my train of thought though. So thanks. No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly. That's why I said that.
Shit, what was I gonna say? Damn it. Okay. Well,
You're welcome.
Anyway, it was like even we talked about walking and stuff like that too. I used to think so. I've been living at home the last 2 years, and so after I studied abroad in Hong Kong, I spent my last quarter of school living at home. So I'd commute to school and stuff. And right after I graduated, I graduated early, so there was this like period of time between when I started working and when I graduated, where I wasn't really doing much. I mean, we were like in the very early stages of free Logic at the time, but I was just at home. I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't moving, and I gained like a bunch of weight, and my mental health also was like not the best, right? And I used to take something like taking a walk for granted, because I was like, why would I go on a walk? That doesn't make any sense. Now it's like I have to go on a walk, and you can say this too, right? About like I have to go on a walk like every day. I have to hit my steps, because walking is like the simplest form of movement, and it's like we need it to like get our blood flowing. We need it to honestly just get out of the house, especially since we're like cooped up in here all the time. It's been a great way for me to listen to podcasts and learn and stuff. So anyway, long story short, I could keep going, but like long story short, it's been a really shitty year, and I can't deny that. But I think I've grown a lot as a person. I think we've all grown as a company, and in the weirdest ways, I am thankful for this year, because it really brought light to a lot of stupid shit happening in the world, and brought a lot of light to how I might not be living my best life right now, and there's ways where I can improve myself. And yeah,
There you go. I like it. I like it. Good reflection. And I mean, I can tie into a lot of those things that you talked about. I mean, the biggest thing there is, yeah, like you have to don't take your personal fitness and mental health for granted at all. I mean, take that stuff seriously, because at the end of the day, you're only as good as the output you can create. So if you burn yourself out, and I learned that the hard way, I definitely burned myself out this year. I got to the point where I was just working too much. And that was one thing that 2020 taught me, was that once you got put in like an environment where like pretty much you can't really socially interact and do these things and you just work, it's still not healthy to just work, man. Like I was dead ass pulling Elon Musk. I was pulling the 120-hour weeks, 100-hour weeks. That's not healthy. You can only do it for so long, and it bit me in the ass. And that taught me that, like, no, you have to pace yourself. You can set goals for yourself. You want to achieve things, but don't expect it to happen right away, and move towards it, and leverage a team, and like actually balance it out and do that way. But as for 2021, I think overall I'm super excited for it, because things will start opening up in the economy, hopefully by the end of the year. And what that means is that there's going to be a new spurt of excitement in business, right? Right now, we're in a really, like, January and February are going to be brutal. And that's why we're doing this virtually right now. We don't want to take any risk, because COVID right now is just surging like crazy. January is going to be absolutely awful. Hopefully from there, it starts getting better really quickly. But the reality is like what you were talking about for businesses is actually 60%. So 60% of small businesses have closed during this time. What that means is it's going to be the biggest dynamic shift ever in US history from business growth. Because what happens is, if 60% of small businesses are depleted, the 40% that still exist, customers still need to go somewhere. Your market share just skyrocketed if you can survive through this time. So for me personally, it's looking at how can we enable these businesses that have made it through, and we can still help some companies make it through this time, but how do we rapidly grow them in 2021 so that we can enjoy 2022 and celebrate? Because honestly, 2022, I'm going to a bar the first day that, like, they're like, we're good. I'm going to a bar. I know I'm going to feel really weird when I go there. I'm going to be like, oh, I don't know how I feel sketched out here. But yeah, I need to get back to my routine, man. Like, my summertime routine was always go to the beach, go to the bar, enjoy myself, and then do work and hustle the next couple of days. Nikhil, you know this from messages from me. So does Evan and everybody else on our team. But that's been my, like, de-stressors, like going to the gym, going to the bars, going out, having fun, socially interacting. I miss that so much. And that's why I'm so excited, because, like, we're doing this through, like, not only just like a hardship from, like, economic standpoint, but, like, also on a mental standpoint, right? We're pushing through a very hard time. Everybody's at home. Mental health is a big issue, should be talked about. Once again, that's why we're trying to articulate that across on the Brew platform. But as for 2021 and 2022 and moving forward, all I want to see is momentum and growth, as I talked about earlier. And then for me personally, taking my physical and my mental state way more seriously, and trying to find outlets that I can do that, because the gym's not the option. Because the gym used to be that thing for me. But that's my kind of take as for 2020, 2021, 2022. But I'm super excited. I don't know if you guys have any other final comments, but we can probably just close out the show for 2020. It's been a great run for the Brew. I mean, we did, like, what, 20, how many episodes we did total?
24, 26, something like that.
This is episode number, let's see, the first one we did in 2020 was episode 4. So we've done 24 episodes already, and this is episode 25 in the new year. So I gotta say, it's been a great year of content. Super excited for 2021. And for those that are listening today, appreciate you. Thank you so much for staying tuned and participating in as we grow. Anything you guys want to say to the people listening today, and we can close out for today's show.
Thank you. That's really it. Thank you for 2020. Appreciate you. I think 2021 is going to be very interesting. And I hope that you are here for the ride, through all the changes and all the new shows and all the updates that we make in 2021.
Anything for you, Nikhil, or is this
we're doing it for you. Thank you.
We do it. Nikhil takes me to the dark side for you. It's all for the content.
Yeah, but we appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe to our platforms, and stay in tuned. As we stated, 2021, we have a lot of new content on the way. So get ready for it. But thank you for tuning in. This has been a great episode for The Brew.
Is this thing on?
Yes, we can hear
It
you.
is.
Oh
Yeah.
no, it's not coming up on the stream. It
Unfortunately.
is? Oh, okay, from the production team. From the production team, we thank you for the voice of God, the reverb. Thanks for tuning in. That's it.
Why do you have
That's all
so
we
much reverb?
Shouting from the closet.
Because we can. We have like 24 effects we can do on this mixer. So.
Oh, that's right. You have the mixer effects.
Yep. Well, thanks for watching, and yeah.
I'm gonna link to the Brew Twitter right now so people
I'll
can
go back to the closet now.
get back in there. Is that God?
All right. Thanks for tuning in.
Oh, where'd your reverb go?
Oh, I turned it off because I'm kind of done with it.
Oh, come on! You now you have to only have reverb if you're gonna address us anytime in this.
Anytime during the show. Yeah.
Is that part of my contract?
That is actually in your
It is.
contract. So hold on. Actually, Nick, we have people in the chat asking, please, Lord, give us your wisdom.
let's hear your final wisdom for the year of 2020.
Let me think.
Trickle down economics isn't working.
No, trickle down economics.
Get back
is not
in there,
good.
Goblin.
Get back in the goblin door, the hidey hole. I think that's it. I think it's really it for us. To be honest.
Okay, I'll take it.
I love that whatever benevolent creature produces our show is on the same side of me with trickle down economics.
Well,
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in.